So you want to give a speech about yourself? Well, maybe not, but that is the assignment. And so with this PowerPoint lecture, I'm going to go through exactly what needs to be done for this speech. Once again, don't panic. It's easier than it may sound. Yeah, you've heard that before. No, it's really not a complicated process. And so I'm going to go through this, talk a little bit about the process, what's required, and then in another video, which I'll post very soon, I will do a self introductory speech and show you my outline, all the good things that go with it. So, again, um, don't panic. It's not really too bad. So, what's this speech about? Okay, with the dramatic reading, with that first presentation, the whole idea was to take something and learn how to do the breathing, expression, pacing, the all important pause. So that was more about the physical nature of giving a presentation. Now you're actually going to create something. You're going to tell us a little story about yourself. I'll explain. So, what are the objectives? Okay, learn how to choose a topic for a speech. Okay, well, for this speech, the topic is you. Well, that's pretty broad, isn't it? Okay. Again, I'll elucidate here in just a moment on how to narrow this down because look at the target time. It's only 3 to 5 minutes long. This is not a long speech. And so the the quote unquote topic, which is you, but what you want to tell us about you needs to be very focused. It's going to just be one little story that tells us a little bit about who you are. In the speech, it's not about how many brothers and sisters you have, cats and dogs, uh, just general things like that. We want to know something about you and who you are. And I've already told you in another lecture that I'm going to give a presentation, a little speech about a favorite book and the fact that I love books. All right. So I'm narrowing it down. I'm not going to tell you when I was born or where I was born or even where I grew up. You'll kind of get that out of the speech, but that's not the point of the speech. The point is that I'm going to tell you just a little bit about something that's important to me. All right. So uh, the objectives, choosing that topic, what it is you want to tell us about, focusing the topic so that you can do something with it in 3 to 5 minutes, which is the target time. All right. Oh, okay. Repeating myself here. I do that a lot. So the target time, 3 to 5 minutes. All right. As I said with the dramatic reading, I'm far more concerned that you reach the 3 minute minimum mark for this speech than if you go over just a little bit. Now, typically that's not a big issue, people giving a speech about themselves and wanting to talk for 10 minutes or so. Although I had a student a few years ago who, and because I don't cut people off, I since have done a little bit of that, went for 20 some minutes talking about himself. Okay, that was a bit crazy. So, again, target time 3 to 5 minutes. You must meet that minimum 3 minute. I think you'll find that's not difficult to do. All right, the speech must be extemporaneous. I'm just mentioning that right now. I'm going to come back at another time and talk about the 4 different types of speaking methods, one of which is extemporaneous. But basically, extemporaneous means that you're not reading from a completed text. I do not want anyone to read from a typed out complete speech. And you can see that bullet point number 3 says you will work from and then turn in an outline. You're going to be working from an outline. Now, I usually, in class, I usually ask, how many of you have ever taken a speech class, maybe in high school or something? And a few people. And in many of those classes, it's quite common that to give the presentation, you use 3 by 5 or index cards of some kind. The outline in my mind is pretty much the same. I used to use cards, but the problem is uh, you tend to put too much on a card and you write small. And so then you're kind of trying to do this with the card. And I gave that up a long, long time ago. And I just prefer to write out an outline, print it out so it's big and easy to read. And again, I'm going to show you mine. So that's what I'm asking you to do. Now, if for the actual speech, you've done this with index cards in the past, you want to use index cards, you're absolutely welcome to do that. But you still need to turn in an outline. How are you going to do that? You're going to do it as a Word document or a Google Doc, and you're going to email it to me. It's that easy. All right, and then I can score that particular part of the process. Now, bullet point number 4 says an object is required. All right. Once again, keep this really simple. Don't panic. When I talk about the book, I'm reaching back here. This isn't the book, but when I talk about the book in particular, I'm going to hold up the book. Okay, that's the object. Why would you do that? It's because it gives some feeling of being concrete, being real, if you can provide an object. I've had people use all kinds of interesting objects. Sometimes I've had a few really wonderful speeches about my first car sort of thing. And a couple of people have been very creative and brought in like a matchbox version of their car. Obviously, you can't bring the car in. Holding up the keys, that's an object. The adventure of getting your driver's license, holding up the driver's license, going to a concert that you really love that just really impacted you, and you've saved the ticket. There's your object. So the object is very, very simple. Don't overthink this business with the object, okay? It's very simple. Had a speech once by a young lady who was into roller derby. If ever, you know what that is, strap on the skates and you go around in circles and you try to elbow people out of the way. And she brought in her skates and her knee pads, and people just loved it. It was just great. So the object is important. It gives you, like I said, a sense of reality that just talking does not provide. All right. Now, as we develop the concept of outlining, for this speech, I want you to work very hard on developing a good introduction and a good conclusion. Now, I showed you a couple of slides in a previous PowerPoint lecture that was the introduction and conclusion for this speech. Again, I'm very, very quickly here, you're going to see my full outline, not in this lecture, but you're going to see my full outline with the introduction and the conclusion, because I want you to work on that and try to develop good, strong beginning and ending to your speech. And I've talked about this. The body of the speech, well, let me get to that in just a moment. Okay, the body of the speech for this speech is just very straightforward. All right, so developing focus, structure, and it's in a story format. You're telling us a story about yourself. All right. So the topic for this first speech is you. Okay, I'm repeating again here. 3 to 5 minutes for the target time. So how can you cram all this into 5 minutes? I'll show you here. I say, and I've already said this, you're going to pick something specific that's happened to you, or that's important to you, or that you enjoy doing, whatever it might be. And that's what you're going to focus on. What are some of the possibilities here? Okay. All right. Again, I keep getting ahead of myself on these slides. I've given this lecture a lot over the years, so I sort of get ahead. Okay. It could be something that's important to you. It could be a funny story, something that happened to you that illustrates a little bit about you. But what else? What other topics could you use? Let's see what I have here. The family trip. That seems to be a favorite of students, talking about some special trip. It doesn't have to be a family trip. It could be a trip that you took on your own, but some kind of trip. Those make for great stories. Family trips are fun because usually it's about some disaster or having to sit in a car for 20 hours with your stinky brother, whatever it might be. A hobby. Who has time for hobbies anymore? Okay, well, some of you might have hobbies. Again, a couple of years ago, I had a young lady who gave a speech about calligraphy. What the heck is that? Calligraphy is the art of writing essentially as an art form. She brought in her calligraphy pen. Oh, can you believe it? I have one. Huh, no, I'll use this one. I have one right here. Can you imagine that? Let's see if I can get it into the camera. Here's my calligraphy pen. Yeah, I like doing it too. So, uh, she talked about that, her hobby. I had somebody once talk about his hobby of crocheting, and he crocheted covers for Kleenex boxes for nursing homes, just as little things to brighten up the nursing homes. So anyway, hobby, sports interest. That's always a good one. You might want to tell a story. Let's say you're into soccer or lacrosse or some such thing, and uh, you want to tell us about a special game where it was up to you to kick that goal that would win the game, and you ran to the ball and you nailed it and missed, or the basketball rolled around the rim and fell off. So it can be a story about success or not success if it illustrates a little bit about something that's important to you. Maybe you want to talk about why you're at CSN, your educational goals, things that you want uh, uh, to do in your life. That's always a good one. Uh, I've had, because CSN does a lot with the nursing programs, I've had a fair number of speeches about why people are going into the medical field, nursing in particular. A lot of times it's because the individual had a family member or someone that was very important to them get very sick or pass away from some disease or sickness, and that inspired them to try to help others. You get my point. I'm just going on and on here. The influence of a favorite teacher. Who might that be? Yeah, okay, sure. Most of us, I think, have some teacher in their past who was very important to them. Mine was a fellow named Ronald Wilging. He was my high school Latin teacher, who inspired me to study Latin and ancient history. Of course, along with Mr. Zick, my science teacher, who inspired me to study science, and here I am doing both. But again, you get my point. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a favorite teacher. It could be someone very special to you, like your grandfather, your grandmother, your mother, your father, a special sibling, or your best friend, and how that's affected your life a little bit. So you got to cram all of this into 3 to 5 minutes. All right. And you're probably sitting there watching this video, just rolling your eyes and shaking your head and say, all right, Ray, whatever. So this is all about storytelling. All right. The body of the speech, as I said, is a story. Now you have to be concise and make this story uh, flow from point to point. You don't want to just ramble around. That's what the outline is for. That's why you need to do an outline, to make sure that what you're presenting makes good sense. By the way, I will be lecturing on the art of outlining a little later date. But for the moment, like I say, it's about the introduction and the conclusion. This middle point, the body of the speech, can just be bullet points at this time. So, how do you set the stage? Again, let me illustrate. Hello, my name is Ray Shabinsky, and today I want to tell you a special story about a beautiful spring day, and when I acquired a very special book. That's one way I could open the speech. There's another way. Hello, my name is Ray Shabinsky, and I want to talk about everyone's worst nightmare. Okay, so there's different ways I can set the stage. All right. This is the grabber that I talked about in the last lecture. You need to find a way to get people's interest and hold them. Let's see. But of course, you don't, as I say, you're not giving away everything in speech. That's what setting the stage is about. You've seen enough movies or read enough books to understand what this is. And of course, don't be afraid to talk about yourself. In general, I think we all, at some point, like talking about ourselves. It's just natural. This is just a little bit more formal way to go about it. All right. Now, in most speeches, the body of the speech has three main points: point A, subpoints; point B, subpoints; point C, subpoints, and so on. That's not the case with this speech. And again, when you see my outline, it'll be clear. You'll understand better what I'm talking about. Quite often, the self-introductory speech is called a one-point speech because instead of the three main points of the body of say, an informative or persuasive speech, this is just a story about you. So it's really just one point, all right, which makes it easy because, again, this is all about storytelling. All right, now, the object, I've already talked about that. It can be something very, very simple. Do not overthink the object. Keep it simple. All right, so you do need to have an object for the speech. On the rubric, which I'll be sending you, there's a place there, use of object. So if you forget the object, unfortunately, you won't get any points for that. If you come up with any kind of object, then you'll get points for that. All right. Now, I'll go ahead and say this. No video or slides can be used, so don't do a PowerPoint sort of thing like I'm doing right now. This is just you in front of the camera with your outline and an object giving a speech. Don't try to do anything crazy like this. All right, keep it very simple. Also, in the classroom setting, I always say that because I don't want people putting images up to take away from their presentation. This is all about you giving the speech. And there I go. I say it again, 3 to 5 minutes. I think you've got that. And you're working from an outline. Let's see. What else do we have here? All right. I talked about this. In fact, this is almost just exactly the same slide as in my last lecture. The ending is the beginning. You remember what I meant about that? If you don't know how you want to end the speech, you run the risk of just having the speech drift around from point to point. What is it you want people to know at the end of the speech? All right. So again, I highly recommend that you sit down and just draft out an ending for the speech. That's all. You can always modify it as you go along. In fact, I'm sure you will. But if you know how you want to end this speech, you'll have a good, strong conclusion. It provides closure. And it also lets the audience know that you're truly finished. And it helps you feel like you've completed the task. So once you decide what you're going to talk about, a favorite teacher, your favorite music teacher. Well, what about that favorite music teacher? Don't just tell us a bunch of random facts. What specifically do you want us to know about your relationship with that favorite music teacher or favorite parent or, again, favorite person, as an example? Figure out what the point of the story is. There we go. Half past. All right. So the ending is the beginning. Once again, once I do my speech and email it to you, which you'll have by tomorrow, I think this will make a whole lot more sense. I call this a roadmap. It really is. It's like going on a trip. If you don't know, I'm driving from Las Vegas to Los Angeles, doesn't matter either way, then how do I know when I've completed the trip? That's what I mean by the ending is the beginning. You can't begin the trip unless you know where you're going to end up. So work on that conclusion before you work on anything else. All right, so the speech itself is worth 70 points. The outline, and remember, you have to send me the outline. You can send it to me at the same time that you send me the video, or you can send it to me ahead of the video. Doesn't really matter, as long as I have both of them. Um, the outline is worth 20 points, so 90 points total for this presentation. The important thing with that outline, do it as a Word document or do it as a Google Doc. I've had various and sundry kinds of files sent to me, some of which I can't open. So please keep it simple. Word document or Google Doc, either one of those works just fine. So there we go with this first presentation or first full-fledged speech, the self-introductory speech, 3 to 5 minutes long. Just a story about you with a good, strong introduction and a good, strong conclusion and the outline that you'll be sending me. So I will send you another video of my speech along with my outline, and we'll get started on this. You'll have that no later than tomorrow. All right. Thanks a lot for listening. If you have any questions, as always, please send me an email. See you later.